Welcome everyone. This is the Masterclass. My name is Patricknazareth. I have around 30 years of teaching experience and I'm here to help dispel your doubts, should you have any. Today, we continue with our explanation of Julius Caesar, focusing on Act 5, Scene 3. Historically, there were two battles fought at Philippi. In the first one, Brutus did manage to defeat Octavius, but Cassius was overrun by Antony. During the battle, Cassius misread what had happened and thought his cause was lost. As a direct result, he committed suicide. Brutus was left demoralized and isolated. Pressured by his officers, 3 weeks later, they fought the second battle, during which he was defeated again, and the Republicans officially came to an end in Rome. Shakespeare compresses these two battles into a single continuous action that takes place. An overview then. This is effectively the most tragic scene in Act 5. Cassius dies because of a misunderstanding. Titinius dies over Cassius's body. Brutus discovers both deaths. The Republican conspiracy is effectively over. What are the main events? Cassius tells Pindarus that his own standards have been captured by Antony's forces. He sees horsemen surrounding Titinius and believes Titinius has been captured. Cassius orders Pindarus to kill him because he does not wish to be captured by Antony. Titinius returns. He realizes that Cassius committed suicide because he thought that he had been captured. In fact, he had been surrounded by Brutus's victorious army, who had brought news of Octavius's departure and was celebrating it with him. Overwhelmed with grief, he kills himself on Cassius's sword. Messala is the person who brings Brutus the news of both the deaths. Brutus mourns Cassius and then prepares to fight again. Why is this scene important? Cassius's death is caused by his own misreading of events. Tragic irony at its peak.
Titinius's
loyalty unto death is one of the play's most moving moments. Brutus's eulogy for Cassius is his finest speech. Genuine, unperforming grief. The ghost's prophecy is being fulfilled. Thou shalt see me at Philippi. The summary of Act 5, Scene 3 then. The place, the battlefield at Philippi. Time, still the first day of the battle. It's a hill overlooking the battlefield. Who are the characters present? Cassius,
Titinius,
Pindarus, Messala, Brutus, Lucilius, young Cato, Strato, Volumnius, Labio, Flavius. What happens? Cassius retreats with
Titinius,
He reports his own standards have been taken. He sees horsemen surrounding.
Titinius,
He believes his best friend has been captured. Pindarus stabs Cassius because Cassius had freed him from slavery, binding him with an oath that whatever Cassius asked him to do, he would do.
Titinius,
Turns. Messala confirms that he was greeted by friends, not by enemies.
Titinius,
Places a garland on Cassius's head and kills himself. Brutus arrives. He discovers both bodies. Brutus prepares for another battle, vows to mourn properly later. Lines 1 to 46. Cassius dies because of a misreading of the battlefield. The man who plans Caesar's assassination is undone by a false report. Cassius watches from a hill. His eyesight is poor. He sees horsemen surrounding Titinius and believes it is the enemy capturing him. He calls this his own fault that he has delivered his friend to his enemy. Myself have to mine own turned away. In reality, the horsemen are Brutus's, victorious soldiers who are greeting Titinius. Cassius has misread a victory as a defeat, the play's most devastating irony. Cassius reveals the bond that gives him power over Pindarus. He had spared Pindarus' life in Parthia on condition Pindarus always obeys him. He now calls in that debt. Thou shouldst attempt it. Come now, keep thine oath. He covers his face and tells Pindarus to strike. Key quote, Caesar, thou art revenged, even with the sword that killed thee. Cassius acknowledges in death that Caesar's revenge is complete. He dies on the same sword that kills Caesar. The symmetry is the punishment. Pindarus' role? Pindarus is a bondsman, a slave who owes his life to Cassius. He kills Cassius not out of cruelty, but out of obligation and grief. After the killing, he flees. Far from this country, Pindarus shall run. He is the instrument of Cassius's death, but it is Cassius's own decision to die. Lines 47 to 90. Titinius' suicide over Cassius's body is one of Shakespeare's most moving acts of loyalty. The discovery. Titinius returns to find Cassius dead. Messala explains. The horsemen Cassius saw were Brutus's victorious soldiers. Titinius was being crowned with garlands, a mark of victory, not capture. Titinius, why didst thou send me forth, brave Cassius? Did I not meet thy friends? And did not they put on my brows this wreath of victory? He addresses the dead Cassius directly, an apostrophe of grief. Titinius kills himself. A key quote attributed to him. He takes Cassius's sword and says, Brutus, come apace, and see how I regarded Caius Cassius. By your leave, gods, This is a Roman's part. A Roman's part means the honorable act of a Roman, suicide rather than survive a fallen general. He dies placing the garland on Cassius's head, a final act of love and honor. What is the dramatic significance? Titnius's death shows how one man's
misreading
creates a chain of deaths. Cassius misread the battle, died. Titnius found Cassius dead, died. The cruelty is that all this was completely unnecessary. Brutus had won. Titnius's loyalty is the most wordless heroism. He dies not from defeat, but from devotion. Part 3, lines 91 to the end. Brutus arrives. Cassius and Titnius are dead. His response is the play's most honest and unperforming grief. What does he say? O Julius Caesar, thou art mighty yet. Thy spirit walks abroad and turns our swords in our own proper entrails. Brutus acknowledges that Caesar's ghost
is
responsible for these deaths. The ghost prophecy is being fulfilled. Caesar's spirit has had its revenge. Brutus is the first to fully acknowledge the supernatural dimension of what is happening. The eulogy he gives Cassius. The last of all the Romans, fare thee well. It is impossible that ever Rome should breed thy fellow. Last of all the Romans? The greatest example of Roman virtue is gone. Brutus calls Cassius greater than Rome can ever replace. This is Brutus entirely without performance. No stoicism, no philosophy, only grief. Friends, I owe more tears to this dead man than you shall see me pay. He acknowledges that his grief is greater than even he can show. The private man speaking. Despite his grief, Brutus prepares to fight again. Come therefore, and to Tasso send his body. He will not bury Cassius at Philippi. It is bad luck for the army. His military duty overrides his personal grief. The same tragic pattern can be seen. Who are the characters? Cassius. His death comes by misreading. Dies because of poor eyesight and poor judgment. He sees enemies where there are only friends. His last words acknowledge Caesar's revenge. He knows why he is dying. The sword that kills him is the same sword that took Caesar's life. Poetic justice. His death is unnecessary, avoidable, and caused by the same pattern that defined his life, acting on incomplete information. Titnius, loyalty unto death. He was not captured, was being crowned with victory garlands. Returns to find Cassius dead, kills himself rather than survive his general. Defines his choice of suicide as an honorable thing for a Roman to do. His death is an act of pure loyalty, the play's most wordless heroism. Pindarus, the reluctant instrument. He is a bondsman who owes his life to Cassius. Kills him under the oath. He has repaid his debt. He flees after his killing. He can never be free of what he has done. He represents those who carry out other people's decisions and bear the consequences. Brutus, the grieving general, calls Cassius the last of all the Romans, acknowledges Caesar's spirit is responsible. His grief is genuine. He cannot show it fully. Duty overrules mourning. He continues fighting. The Stoic mask returns immediately after the eulogy. What are the literary devices used by Shakespeare? Tragic irony. Cassius dies at the moment of Brutus's victory. The horsemen he thinks are enemies are actually friends. A triumph is mistaken for defeat. It is the most unnecessary death in the play. Symbolism. The same sword with which he killed Caesar is used to kill himself. Poetic justice. The assassination turns back on its architects. Caesar's spirit uses their own weapons against them. Apostrophe. Titnius addresses the dead Cassius directly. Why didst thou send me forth, brave Cassius? Also, Brutus addresses Caesar's ghost. Circular structure. Cassius dies on the same sword that kills Caesar. The play ends where it began, with Caesar's power, now as a ghost rather than a man. Pathos. Titinius placing the garland on Cassius's head before dying. Brutus's, I owe more tears than you shall see me pay. Foreshadowing. Caesar's ghost, thou shalt see me at Philippi. Cassius's birthday omen, the ravens and kites, all now realized. Euphemism. A Roman's part for suicide. Titnius frames his death as a noble Roman tradition. Understatement. Friends, I owe more tears to this dead man than you will see me pay. Brutus underplays the depth of his grief. Anagnosis. Brutus's recognition that Caesar's spirit is the cause. Thou art mighty yet. A moment of tragic self-knowledge. Juxtaposition. Cassius dies in the middle of Brutus's victory. The two events happening together create the scene's most unbearable irony. Extended metaphor. Turns our swords in our own proper entrails. The conspiracy as self-destruction. The assassins have stabbed themselves. What are the themes explored by Shakespeare? Faith and the supernatural. Caesar's ghost is explicitly acknowledged as the architect of Cassius's death. Every omen and prophecy in the play has come to fruition. The consequences of the assassination. The conspirators' swords, which killed Caesar, now kill all the conspirators themselves. The assassination has come full circle. Shakespeare's central argument? Political violence destroys its own perpetrators. Misreading and miscommunication. Cassius misreads the horseman, dies needlessly. Titinius returns too late. Brutus arrives too late to stop either death. The play's pattern of failed communication reaches its most lethal expression. Loyalty. Titinius' suicide is the play's purest act of loyalty. He owes nothing to Cassius politically. He simply loved him. A Roman's part defines loyalty as the highest Roman virtue. Contrast with the triumvir's loyalty, which is entirely political and temporary. Honor and the Roman way of death. Cassius, Titinius, and eventually Brutus. They will all die by their own hand. All choose suicide over capture. A Roman's part. This is presented as dignified, but it is also proof of how completely the conspiracy has destroyed everyone it touched. Grief and stoicism. Brutus says he owes more tears than he can show. The stoic mask returns almost immediately after the eulogy. His grief is real but constrained. The same suppression that defined his treatment of Portia's death is back here again. Shakespeare writes in Old English, therefore I have given you a vocabulary list. Please go through it. After reading the passage, you will find the meanings of words you cannot understand given here. I have given you certain key passages. I have set out who the speaker is, the context and the meaning of it. Please do go through it to read and understand it. What do examiners look for? O Julius Caesar, thou art mighty yet. Brutus's recognition of Caesar's supernatural revenge. Most important quote in this scene. Turns our swords in our own proper entrails. You can link this to the ghost prophecy in Act 4, Scene 3. The last of all Romans, fare thee well. Brutus's eulogy is his most genuine speech. No performance, no stoicism, just his grief coming out. Impossible that Rome should ever breathe thy fellow. The contrast with his controlled behavior elsewhere in the play is exactly the point. Tragic irony of Cassius's death. Brutus has defeated Octavius, but Cassius thinks that Titinius has been taken prisoner by his enemies. He cannot bear that he has been defeated. He will not be captive. He commits suicide rather than be taken by his enemies. He misreads the horseman, dies on Caesar's sword. The examiners will reward a detailed explanation of how the irony works. A Roman's part. Titinius' suicide connects to the play's treatment of Roman honor and the Roman way of death. Brutus will use the same logic in Scene 5. The sword symbolism, the sword that kills Caesar, kills Cassius. Cassius dies acknowledging Caesar's revenge, connects to turn our swords in our own proper entrails. Brutus's grief, I owe more tears than you shall see me pay. The gap between felt and shown grief. Stoic performance versus private feeling. Connects to his response to Portia's death, the same suppression. Always linked to themes. Faith, Caesar's spirit, fulfilling the ghost prophecy. Consequences of assassination, the swords are turned on the conspirators themselves. Loyalty, Titinius' death as the play's purest loyalty. Tragic irony, Cassius dying at the moment of victory. Grief and stoicism, Brutus's contained mourning. Right then, I have given you extract-based questions, context-based questions, long answer questions as well as short answer questions. I suggest you read the scene and go ahead and answer them. I have provided the answers should you find that you need more guidance. That's Julius Caesar, Act 5, Scene 3 for you then. I do hope I have been of help. If I have, do remember to like, subscribe and share. Remember, there might be others who would require our help. Thank you so much for watching.